Hey, Chris Manning here from Locked on Cavs. Coming up on today's show, we're going to continue to talk about Media Day. We're going to talk about the two-way battle with Kyle Guy as a late edition training camp signee, that guy over there on the cardigan. And we're going to talk about media availability from Tuesday from JB Bicker's staff and a select group of players. That's all coming up today on Locked on Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Please, by the way, if you're listening in audio form, go to YouTube, hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to support the show. Go support the show. Hit subscribe on YouTube.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Evan, how are you? We're day after media day. Already feels like it happened a week ago just by the very nature of things. But what's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm good, man. I bought a car today, which maybe it was just riding in your new Cybertruck that just gave me some serious FOMO. And I thought to myself, you know what? I gotta get myself a new whip. So I am the proud owner of, drumroll please, a 2017 Nissan Versa. So real my car, thinking ahead, and thank you everyone for being our hashtag first listen / hashtag first watch of the day. It's a brunch place, but a place to check out Locked On Cavs.
That's right. As mentioned at the top, we're going to continue to talk about media day. We're going to talk about media availability.
Hold on, how are you?
We're going to talk. I'm doing, buddy. You know, you and I talk enough where you sort of know where I'm at. I just want to dive into the work and focus on the work.
That's fair. That's fair.
Business. This is.
Well, let's get to business. Let me get out my pen.
This is just like an unnecessary, like, just stop it.
I can't criticize anything.
Okay. Evan Media Day. We talked about Kevin Love. We talked about Colin Sexton. We talked about Evan Mobley. We talked about the offense. We talked about COVID vaccinations. What else for Media Day do you want to touch on? What else to you kind of stood out from whom we heard from and all of that?
Colin Sexton was super amped. We talked about his contract situation. Touched much on the fact that Mike Porter Jr. signed an extension, and talked about this a little bit in the Fear the Sword Slack. DeAndre Ayton still hasn't gotten one. Mikal Bridges still hasn't gotten one. I think those two are probably going to be prime next because of how important they are to what Phoenix is doing and building. Other than that, like, I think I'm getting the impression, at least, just, and also looking at the grand scope of the league, I think Colin is going to probably be extended before the season starts. But if they do, it's going to get real bumpy, or if they don't, rather, it's going to get bumpy real fast for the Cavs. And it's going to be another unnecessary storyline hanging over the heads of this team. The Kevin Love situation already being the biggest one. I mean, the primary focuses were Colin's contract, the Kevin Love situation. My biggest takeaway also is the fact that Darius Garland is this team and making it known that it's his organization going forward. So I'm intrigued to see what goes on with that, but we can talk about more about that in the next segment. But that's just kind of based on the conversations we had today. But yeah, other than that, I'm just intrigued to see kind of what happens next here. Like, again, like we said yesterday, that everyone in the organization was saying all the right things. I need to see it in execution now to fully buy in.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I don't know if I totally agree with this. Like, the Sexton thing is going to it's the Kevin thing is just sort of its own thing, I sort of think.
They're entirely independent of one another. I was just
yeah, but I just mean, like, the Kevin one has, like, just a much more charged vibe to it, and the Colin thing, it's just sort of like I think they just function a little bit differently just because of the Kevin thing and the way he may or may not have acted, which you kind of alluded to when he spoke to the media. I think was a little more combative, let's say, than Colin might be. And I think I think they're a little bit a little bit hard for me to compare. I think I want to talk with Jared Allen because I found his media session, like, he's very to the point in how he talks, right? Like, I think he gives, like, the shortest answers of, like, any player that spoke. But I found that, like, he was, like, engaging
Brother,
with
did
every
you hear Evan
question.
Mobley speak?
Okay, but, like, Evan Mobley is, like, 19 and, like, shy, and, like, even, like, Markkanen would, like, go on, like, some little soliloquies, and, like, continue to talk, like, when he probably already answered the question. Mobley kinda does something. Allen, like, says what he wants to say, and then he's done, and he's done, and I sort of, like, and you can tell that he's actually listening to what is being asked and then responding to it. And he's like actually kind of engaging with it in a way that I think is sort of like kind of cool. Like I love when you can tell when a guy is kind of just being attentive because it makes our jobs easier. It's just kind of more of an interesting process. I could be misreading that, but I tend to think that's true. And where
No,
he also
you
said
and
he
I
added
talked about
weight.
it a little bit yesterday. Like Jarrett said a lot without saying much, and he was incredibly candid with us. Like he was engaged. But yeah, no, that go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so he said he added weight, which I thought was one takeaway. And then I'd asked him about if he learned anything from that Nets team he was on, that Kenny Atkinson coach. He was led by two guards and D'Angelo Russell and Spencer Dinwiddie, and they were surprisingly competitive and made a run. And he just kind of, that may have been the longest answer he gave. I'm almost kind of done transcribing the worth of stuff, like that being a season he really enjoyed and like taking people by surprise and succeeding against kind of the odds kind of stacked against them. And I just find him really like he is like another guy that is like a young vet. There's a lot that's being asked of him. He's going to be covering for whatever front court duo he's a part of. He's going to be vastly important to that unit succeeding on defenses, particularly with Markkanen, but also with Mobley as Mobley gets acclimated. He talked, about Darius Garland as well, kind of, I think, giving maybe the most detailed answer to what Garland does as a creator in terms of putting him in the right spots, having him roll a certain way, like all the chemistry they've already kind of developed and will continue to develop. I just found his media session just like very engaging. And I am curious to see like what his listed weight is at and then how he looks against some of the bruiser he's going to face. Because remember, in division, you have Sabonis. It looks like Miles Turner is going to be playing a little this year based on what's coming out of Indiana. You have Beef Stew, Isaiah Stewart in Detroit, who's like younger, obviously, but very athletic, very physical player who can get up into a guy's chest. They'll play Joel Embiid this season. Like you go around the league, there are lots of bigs that he will have to be the guy on Cleveland to defend, sort of those bulkier guys. Like I just want to see if let's say he's added 10, 15 pounds. I don't know. I mean, he looked bigger to me, but I have a hard time like gauging some of that, I'll be curious to see like what he looks like if he in fact added some weight and sort of if that changes him at all. If that if what the benefits that come from that sort of end up being if they're often and if they're defensive, I think that's the obvious way. But also offensively, like last year when he was with Cleveland, it's just true that his percentage at the rim was a little bit lower just because it's a little harder when there's not as much space for him down there when you're playing with how bad the Cavs were on offense. If he can push through a little bit more, does that kind of make him more efficient up near the rim? I just think that's interesting.
I think this could be a good stopping point for us too to head into breaks, but it's interesting to think how JB is going to utilize Jarrett, how he's going to use Lowry, how he's going to utilize Evan, not me, Evan Mobley, and
Evan's actually
Kevin
playing
Love
center for the Cavs this year. Evan Dammarell is playing center for the Cleveland Cavaliers this year.
I'm the shortest player on the court, the most out of shape player on the court. I have a knee that is pre-arthritic because of not taking physical therapy seriously as a 13-year-old. I if I could go back in time and punch my 13-year-old self, I would. I'd also be shocked at 13 to see a bearded version of myself with glasses and tattoos, things I swore I never would have. It's definitely interesting to think how JB is going to utilize this, because JB's saying, we want to play faster, we want to take more threes. Jarrett shared with you he wants to take more threes because that's just how the modern NBA big works in this day and age. And
that's like not even like paraphrasing. That's even like
just
to put a point on it. That is like what he said verbatim. Is like that's what centers are doing now. Basically, he was just like, I'm a center. I shoot. That's just sort of what we're supposed to do now. And I thought that was kind of interesting. He's just like, I sort of feel like I know what he is, but he fascinates me. I'm like more interested in sort of the individual talents on this team more than I sort of thought I was.
Yeah,
But maybe that's just because I'm basketball starved.
I think it's because partially we're basketball starved. I think once this road trip gets on, like, God damn it, this Cavs team can go away now. But before they hit that
Yeah,
West
probably
Coast
not.
road trip, they might wanna tune up the old Cavs mobile, get things up and running. And today's sponsor, Rock Auto, can definitely help them out. With the ever increasing numbers of makes and models, it is now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to succeed. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questions and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. They're a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Parts are low for every customer. They have everything you need from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Man, brake pants really threw me off there. Go explore their easy-to-use website today and find a solution for your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, locked on in there. How did you hear about this box? They know that we say. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Check them out today at rockauto.com.
All right, Evan. So let's touch a little bit on media availability from Tuesday. What stood out to you?
Yeah, you were not there. You had to manage the books for us, the money. You know, it's starting to, the racks are starting to pile up, and
Well,
like I know,
gotta check this month. It was
yeah,
for
I know
outside
you wrecked
earn
your
my
fifth
actual earn my
Cybertruck
actual
this
living.
week, and you like left $15,000 in cash in the trunk, but
I'm going
like
broke
it's
on
okay,
Evan.
man. Accents.
I'm going broke on Phoebe Bridgers merch on Wednesday. Okay, like just let me live.
No, man. As the billboard says, the end is near. We'll have to take a nice little candid for the dedicated listeners and encourage everyone to wear a mask and not be like Andrew Wiggins, because our backs will not be against
Okay, enough. Move on.
the wall.
Continue.
They'll be moshing. Key takeaways. Where do you want to start? Do you want to talk with JB? Do you want to talk about Darius? Do you want to talk about Evan
Well,
Mobley?
I just want to ask you what actually like sparked interest in your brain. Like sometimes they say stuff and you're like, okay, this doesn't tell me anything. I don't feel like this is like that interesting. So like, what actually stood out to you?
Well, Kelsey Russo asked a very good. Asked him what kind of growth and development does he expect from Isaac this year, who wasn't today because of his non-COVID related illness. I don't think there's much stock to take from that. Hope Isaac feels better soon. But JB said the next step he wants to see from him is him kind of acting as a tertiary and secondary playmaker and having the ball in his hands more often in the open floor, because he wants to be able to have playmaking from all 5 positions on the floor at any given time. And then Kelsey followed up with that saying, well, what do you expect from Isaac's backup? Because it's safe to assume he's penciled in as a starting 3 next season, or this upcoming season. And JB said he's looking for speed. He's looking for athleticism. He gave a lot of generic coach answers. I think what really stuck out is kind of what he was expecting from Isaac too, but maybe a little bit more shooting, a little bit more defense. And JB just kind of used the same mantra that he's always had, where he wants his players to earn the minutes, and he knows it's going to be a battle between Jetty and Denzel and Lamar and Dylan Windler as well. And I think it gives them a lot of versatility for sure. And it's not like the most inspiring backup 3 battle for sure, but I'm curious who's going to be the front runner in this race. I think you and I have agreed before that Dylan Windler has an outside shot, but I think Lamar Stevens is the safest bet because he's the most JB Bickerstaff like player. And I'm just because they tried a lot of that with Lamar in summer league this year. They tried to make him a 3 who initiated the offense and did some like playmaking, some funky stuff, and acted as a slasher. But the shooting detriments are definitely concerning there too. And that's just like JB was talking about that. I think he said Evan being a cerebral learner, like, Flatter is a fellow Evan. I too am a cerebral learner. Just a very talented player in general. And I don't know. It was a lot of coach talk from JB for sure. And I think his expectations for Isaac were interesting because they really wanted to make him into a tertiary playmaker.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see like how he handles that. I think it's obviously a need. Like it's just something I don't think a market if like Marketing is going to pick up some of the Lyrianus Jr. minutes, he's not going to pick up the role exactly, and like, Okoro might need to pick some of that up. It's just sort of the reality I think of the roster. Yeah, I mean I think there's like definitely some JB stuff that he and the coaching staff are going to have to decide. like in preseason and in the regular season. Like there's going to be stuff. I'll be curious to see what their initial reactions sort of are. I mean, it's not like they'll have practice, a lot of stuff we won't see. It's not like it's one of the things that I will say is hard about kind of talking about this and covering this from like a journalism perspective or whatever is like I'm very jealous of NFL reporters that like get to watch practice for a chunk of like the summer because like they can see guys actually looking in camp to some degree and like see it up close. We don't get any of that access. Like we basically are just kind of going on what JB says, and then what happens is we really like, we're waiting to see like how guys look in preseason games, and that's obviously like just a chunk of the picture when it comes to like seeing how Okoro looks at certain stuff or like whatever. Like there's just a limit on yeah, so it's just kind of what I'm curious to see how it plays out, and it's just hard for me to like. It's hard for me to just like speculate too much until like we sort of see some of it, and like Isaac obviously needs to be sick.
Yeah, I mean he's pretty sick in like terms of cool factor, but sickness is I don't know. I want to ask JB. I know you're doing like going down the rabbit hole, and we can't really share your research on who is and isn't vaccinated in the league in general. That was Chris Manning's free time project. We all work. God works in mysterious ways, but Chris Manning works in the most
like
mysterious ways.
yeah. I mean, basically, like I just was trying to figure out like if I could figure out like via like Google searches and like whatever and social media like who on the Cavs was vaccinated, since they basically said that like not everyone is vaccinated right now, but everyone will be in a short amount of time, and like I have guesses, but I'm not gonna like say that publicly.
Yeah, it's reckless to speculate, I think, on that. I mean,
Well, especially on that, like we do it with trades, we do it with players, but it's like I think with COVID vaccination, it's like dangerous. It's like actually dangerous.
It's been politicized enough to begin with. The last thing we need to do is become the chase down and politicize Cavs fans in a different way.
Wow, always just throwing shots, Evan. Unbelievable.
Hey man, we're the first podcast to have JB Bickerstaff on. We just got our sloppies, that's all. The other key takeaway for me, and it just kind of made me laugh, is talking about how Darius is being such a huge leader on the floor, and Darius is like getting in his face quite often in practice apparently and telling him like you need to be vocal while you're out here, and like Darius is forcing Evan Mobley to come out of his shell quicker than he probably wants to, because Darius is like, listen, you are the back line of our defense, and we need you to be vocal to tell us like, hey, we need help, and it's all really important. And I also think Mobley has been working with Markkanen, and I'm gathering it's because it's a 3-point shooting thing. He's working with Jared Allen on a defense thing, and he's getting familiar with Darius because I think Darius is wanting Evan to be as comfortable as possible and try and build on-court chemistry as quickly as possible, just like he did with Jared Allen last year. Like I think that's all great things and very encouraging to hear from Darius.
Well, let me also just remind that when spoke to Darius at Summer League, okay?
We know. I fist bumped you while we were sitting there.
But he like one of the things he said about Mobley is like I have to get him acclimated, and the Cavs are also just like by the way they're talking about him, by the way that they are like everyone is being, they are like we are all in on Darius Garland. He is like it was that one of the through lines of media day was like it's like oh like this is about Darius in a lot of ways.
Yeah, the Sexton stands will not be happy to hear that Darius Garland is just kind of it's more about land than it is sex and sex land. But other than that, I mean, I think Darius, the Cavs intentionally put his locker right next to Ricky Rubio, so like he's like I'm constantly chatting with him, I'm constantly picking his brain on how to make myself better and be a better teammate and leader on the floor. Like I think. Yeah, that was the through line of yesterday, and it's continuing today. We're like, this is becoming quickly Darius Garland's team, and we all better just get ready for it because everybody is here to make Evan Mobley's life better because he's eventually going to be the part of the face of the foundation of the franchise. But like for now and going forward, like they want Darius's strong sophomore season to not just be a blip. They want it to be the baseline of what's to come with him.
Yeah, well, and I will say if we'll go to break here in a sec, but if Garland works, and if Garland is what they kind of think he might be able to, he's an amplifier. Darius Garland is going to, if the best version of Darius Garland makes Colin Sexton better. He makes Evan Mobley better. He makes Isaac Okoro better. Everyone that he shares the floor with, if Garland is what the Cavs think he can be or can get beyond his way to that, I think he is an amplifier of everyone else around him. And that is really interesting, that if they can have that kind of piece, that does be the connective tissue in a lot of ways. But we got to take one more break. And first, we got to tell everyone about our friends at Sleeper. In 2018, the fantasy sports experts at Sleeper realized that fantasy basketball was broken. Games were being won and lost based on whose players had more scheduled games that week. This made no sense, required no strategy. So in 2020, they released a brand new way of playing fantasy basketball. It's called the Game Pick, and it's only available on Sleeper. So with Sleeper, the days of losing because your opponent's players simply had more scheduled games to play on are over. The mindless daily busy work is over. The days of giving up halfway through the season because of that busy work, it's over. In Game Picks, you pick one game per week for each player based on player matchups, home versus away, opponents, pace of play, and more. All of that adds up to more strategy and less busy work. You can do redraft, keeper, or dynasty leagues with Sleeper. Sleeper cracked the fantasy basketball code. If you play fantasy football, if you prefer building out a weekly strategy versus daily busy work, you're going to love Game Picks. Download the Sleeper app and start a league with your friends today. You will not be disappointed. Plus, got to tell you about our friends at BetOnline. Evan, they're back and better than ever. All eyes are on the gridiron as teams are back to start another football season. It's obviously in full go right now. Cleveland Browns doing work out there. As always, BetOnline is your number
Browns,
one.
baby.
Super Bowl, Super Browns, baby. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. Like Evan dropped $1 bazillion on the Akron Zips. Didn't go well for him over the weekend. With a new updated site and interface, even more odds, props, and contests, BetOnline.ag continues to be the number one source for everything football. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 100% welcome bonus. That's double your initial deposit just for signing up. Don't forget to use promo code NFL100. From football, basketball, boxing, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers for the 2021 season. That's BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. Okay, Evan.
What's up?
Whew. Two-way contracts. So, Cavs, I brought in Kyle Guy. Virginia product, 2019 second-round draft pick. Played with the Golden State Warriors in Summer League. Was very fun in Summer League. Gave a really fun halftime interview at Summer League where he was didn't understand why he wasn't starting. Gary Payton Jr. ultimately was also on that Warriors Summer League team and ended up getting the camp invite. When you think about the two-way situation, there's Kyle Guy, Taco Fall. Broderick Thomas seems to already have one of those slots secured, it would seem. But perhaps that changes. What do you make of that second two-way slot? Do one of these names interest you more than any of the others?
Kyle Guy is intriguing because I think he's like a long option, because let's say the Cavs trade Ricky Rubio by the deadline because of his expiring contract. Then you make Kevin Pangos your primary backup one behind Darius Garland. If you keep Kyle Guy around as just a guy you keep cooking it with the Cleveland Charge, and maybe you bring him up to play with some of the big league games every now and then, because he provides shooting, provides playmaking. He is an undersized guard, so it's not like an ideal fit, but I think it's not it's a worthy gamble for the Cavs to take. I know we talked about how it'd be between Kevin Gailey and Taco Fall probably for that last two-way spot, but I think Kyle Guy, if he has a strong preseason, could make a legitimate case, because a lot of the Cavs Summer League guys have either signed overseas or just not with the team anymore. I mean, Broderick Thomas had a pretty awful Summer League showing. If that continues in the preseason, we could very well be talking about how maybe it's Taco Fall and Kyle Guy on the two-way deals, and Broderick either ends up with the Charge or he just ends up elsewhere, because I don't know. It's just a lot to think about and unpack, but I'm trying to think of a Family Guy joke here, because I just want to say it seems today that all you see is violence in movies and sex on TV, but where are those good old-fashioned values that, the Cavs can rely on? Because lucky there's a Kyle Guy, and I don't know where to go with this, but I just know
you tried. I respect it.
I didn't hate the pick. I'm like, it's kind of intriguing. I don't know. It's not a well, the kid from TCU is intriguing as well. I don't remember his name, but like I watched some of his footage and I'm just like, yeah, it's not a bad pickup. Like I knew virtually nothing about him before this. I think the kid from Creighton as well is a player I knew virtually nothing about, and I watched a little bit of tape on him. I'm like, it's a good acquisition. I can see what the Cavs are trying to do, and I think Kyle Guy also kind of fits in the mold what the Cavs are looking for, in a player that'll play fast, and maybe a player that'll shoot threes, and maybe a player that'll be open in the open court to take those threes.
Well, it's interesting that they would like. I'd be interested to see if they would use a two-way slot on a guard, and like as opposed to like I would say even more than like a wing, and maybe like they're just not happy. Like maybe like the wing options don't work themselves or whatever. But like you have Kevin, like so your point guard situation is like so you have Garland, Sexton will play some lead guard, like he'll handle the ball a lot. You have Rubio, and barring like a trade or a buyout or whatever, assuming he like however long he's on the roster. You have Kevin Pangos, who's like a vet. I don't know if Kevin Pangos is like good. No one knows that. I don't think the Cavs, if you injected them with true serum, would tell you like they knew.
Apparently, he won a 3-point shot between him, Rubio, and Garland today, so that's something.
Okay, but like I'm saying, like him actually being like qualitatively like useful in the actual flow of a game. No one knows. Like they can believe that it'll work, but like we just don't know until we see it. Like it's just there's a transition that's coming. I would be intrigued if they were to go that route. And it seems like if you want to read the tea leaves on it, my understanding is Taco. And if anyone can hear that dog bark in the background, I apologize. I can't. It's not my dog. I don't know whose dog it is. Can't control it. It is what it is. It's very annoying though. The thing that is tricky is Taco Fall has signed an Exhibit 10 camp deal. It would almost seem like they're kind of gearing to end up in Canton and like not have him on a two-way deal, but have him there as like a developmental thing.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean that's a fair assessment. I'd say. I think let's look at it from this way too. Like Taco Fall has market appeal too because he is extraordinary to look at. I know during in between media day sessions, like we looked over and I see Taco sitting in a normal person's chair and it just doesn't compute in my brain at all. If you're the Cleveland Charge and you need a player that you can slap on for marketing, like come see the tallest player in the league, like that's not a bad spot. It's a bad place to start with. And like also it's like Taco completely shows out during exhibition play during preseason and somehow makes his way onto the final roster because maybe Kevin Love just gets sent home and the Cavs say like, okay, we have Markkanen and Mobley, like that is our 4 rotation. We need a 5 who can soak up minutes behind Jared Allen. Like if it's somehow some way like it's him instead of Cobb and Gailey, like it makes sense. But yeah, I think the Exhibit 10 point is a good point. Like I think he's on the fast track to end up with the Charge and he'll be developed in-house and maybe the Cavs try and make it work long-term. But if not, it just doesn't work out and they move on. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, just as a reminder about Guy, it's not like he's a big guard. He's 6'1", 170.
He's 6'1". Yeah, he's got
like
a short wingspan. There's a reason why he is floating around in the summer league and he was barely with Sacramento last year.
Yeah, we played in Stockton with their G League team, shots 209. But I'm curious to see like how they approach this. It's just one of those things that for even though like it ultimately like on the course of a season, like how much your two-way slots like actually impact like your ability to win games and stuff. It's like not it is in the NBA so far. It just hasn't been like substantial. I just think it's like interesting from a team building perspective, from a situation where like you're trying to boost what your pipeline of talent, if you're gonna like actually give yourself like depth pieces. Like no offense, a couple years ago, like the last year I found it I just remember the last year finding it very bizarre that like the Cavs' two-way contracts were John Holland and Lennon Parantes. And I thought Holland kind of made some sense because he was 27, I think at the time. If you needed to in a pinch, like you could throw him out there and play him some minutes. Parantes was like a fringe NBA prospect in general. And I'm like, okay, like I understand if you want to get a look at a younger guy, but like this is such a win now situation. And like this guy who like literally his locker is like in one of the extra ones. LeBron usually gets like space between in his little corner of the locker room. It's just like one of these things that I was like, I don't understand what the strategy is here in terms of like and maybe they're figuring it out now. Maybe it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, like now that it's in Cleveland, now that I think the G League is over time just going to be a thing that we see more and more development work try to be done in. It seems like I'll just be curious to see how the Cavs approach it and just kind of track that, not just this year or the season, but like into next year, whatnot. And and if they get through training camp and they're like, we think Kyle Guy could be like our backup point guard next year, then like sign him to a 2-way and get a good look at him and let him play in Canton, develop him and do that if you want to play that right. I don't think that's like a crazy thing to consider doing if you want to give yourself options that are very cost effective that way as well.
No, I absolutely agree. And if Kyle Guy works out, Chris, did you know he's a mushroom then? Because he'll be a pretty fun guy.
I thought you're gonna make a free guy joke.
I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't either.
I need to see the movie to understand. I know it's basically the Truman Show, but video games with Ryan Reynolds. So it's an interesting enough premise. That might be a wait that comes to home media situation for me, though, where I don't bother going out to pay money to see it in theaters.
You do though strike me as a guy opening night, probably midnight, gonna go see Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage, just like immediately, right? That seems like a thing.
No, I haven't seen the first one at all, but I know it's like one of the first ones,
either.
like one of the worst movies ever made. So I'm morbidly curious. Probably when it comes to the Plus as part of the Sony deal, I'll watch it then. But I enjoy the cast, but I don't know if I'll enjoy the movie.
Collect those checks. So anyway, that's going to be it for Locked On Cavs. We're going to get out of here. Again, hit that subscribe button on YouTube for the love of your mother, your father, your siblings, everything you hold dear. Hit subscribe and support the podcast on YouTube right now.
If you don't, I'll write about it with my new pen in my notebook. That's where I write love notes to Chris's mom. See you guys tomorrow or something. Bye. We're going to Phoebe Bridgers, so we're not recording tomorrow. Bye.